everyone. Thanks for joining me today as we deep dive a little bit more into Luminar AI. I appreciate everybody's suggestions and agreement in featuring some of our webinars on just a specific product. I know we always try to cover a lot in every webinar, so this will give us a little more time to explore some of the features of Luminar. And hopefully I can show you a couple of tricks too, because I'm still learning some about this program myself. For those of you who already own Luminar, there is, if you haven't seen it yet, there is an Luminar Insiders group, and they hold coffee chats, they're calling them, every weekday, with different topics. And it definitely, I've picked up a few tips from there just watching other people, and it's just like Photoshop. Everybody's got their own way of doing things, which is great, and we all keep learning from each other. It's what keeps it fun. So let's get rolling, because I've got lots I want to show you. So we're going to close this. So most of the images today, I'm going to do directly in Luminar. This first one I'm going to do from Photoshop just to show you how you can use it as a plugin as well. But then I'm going to go right to Luminar. We're just going to work there. So this image I took last summer right here over our house in Tennessee. Another one off my back deck, view from the deck. So the first thing I want to do here is crop this image. And this one I did some basic editing in Lightroom, just, kind of basic color corrections. So I do want to delete cropped pixels, and that's important when you're going in and using either Luminar or Topaz or any of the other plugins, because if you don't delete them, they won't see the cropped version. They're going to still see the full version. So this is a good way to get around that. So with this one, I'm going to make this a vertical since he's kind of flying in that direction. And I want to get him in a nice swoop across this frame. Whoops. I'm going to leave a little bit more room at the bottom because he is flying, and a little more room over here on the right so he has somewhere to go in the frame. You can see his top wing is right there on our crossroads of our rule of thirds. It's coming just a smidge more on the right. And yeah, that'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and crop this, and then I'm going to duplicate my layer, and then we're going to go into Luminar. So Skylum Luminar AI is what we're going to work in today. And I'm going to start with a template on this one. On some projects I will, some projects I won't. The templates are a great starting point, and you can still fully modify them to your own liking. So it's just what they've tried to do with Luminar AI is make it a quick way to edit your images, but yet you still have full control. So with Luminar AI, the AI intelligence in here analyzes your subject when you bring it into this program and will suggest groups of templates for you. Of course, you're not limited to those, but it's kind of a good starting point because it does give you some that it thinks will work for this image. So it's seeing that this is an animal or a bird. So I'm going to go with the Animal Friends collection, and I'm going to use the one called Natural. Now that's a little bright, and it takes, when you see the Luminar logo flashing blue, that means it's processing. So some things take longer than others. So I'm going to bring back the opacity of this preset to somewhere around like about a 60%. There's no numbers here, so somewhere around there would be about a 60%. And then we're going to switch over to the Edit tab. And this is where we can fine tune everything to our own liking. So we're going to start in the Essentials section, Enhance AI. And if you remember from previous webinars, any of these items that have this little dot in front of it means that that template we used has made some adjustments in that function. So we can go in and further adjust them. This one you can see has the dot here because it did do some accent AI. I'm going to move that. Let's see, am I going to change that one? No, it's a composition. We're going to go down to details. Sorry. because it did already do enough of that there. But I am going to pop the details a little bit more, and it added some to the large details, which I'm actually going to pull back on because I want less detail in the large areas, which is the sky. I don't need detail back there. But the small and medium, I'm going to add a little detail to accent the feathers a little bit more. And then we're going to come down to denoise because this image is a little bit noisy. And I'm going to change the luminosity, which is your brightness areas, to about there. And the color denoise, I'm also going to add a little. So I'm not going too far with these, just a little bit. Then we're going to come down to our creative section, which of course you know is my favorite. And we're going to change out this beautiful blue sky, but we want something much more dramatic and interesting. So I realized when I was sitting here waiting for the webinar to start, if you purchase the notes, you know that I always give you all of my textures and things. And I realized that I forgot to put this sky in there. So I'm going to update that when we get done with the webinar. And if you purchased them already, because I know a couple of people have, I will email you the extra sky that is missing. I was like, oopsie, forgot about that one. So we're going to go into sky selection. And I'm going to go down to, because I've brought a whole bunch of my own in here, I'm going to go to my skies. So if you're using the sky that I give you, you're just going to click on custom, and then you can add it in here. And I'll show you how to do that with another project we're going to add one to. So for now, I'm going to go to my skies. And I know this is down here. This is the one I want. When I click on it, you can see the name. It's Storm. Oh, that's not the one. It's Stormy Clearing 3 that I wanted. So this is the one I'm going to use. And it's there. And then we're going to go in and make some adjustments to this. So we're going to go under orientation. And we don't really have a horizon, so you can see there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom. So I'm just going to bring the horizon blending all the way down. And I'm also going to bring the vertical offset to -100. And that's going to get rid of that gap. I also want to change my horizontal offset, which I can shift this side to side. And this is something new in the latest update of Luminar AI that they had in March, because we could not do this previously. And I'm going to change this, and you can see it shifting that sky. And I wanted to get a little bit more of the clouds in there. So I'm going to change it just a little bit from my notes because I didn't put the bird in quite the same spot. Then we're going to go to scene relighting, which Luminar does automatically relight the scene based on the sky, but then you can also, like everything, adjust it a little bit more. So I'm going to bring this up. And even though I don't have a human in here, I'm going to click on relight human, and that's going to brighten the center of the image a little bit. I'm just doing a teeny bit. It's going to brighten a little bit of that. Then we're going to go to sky adjustments, and the brightness I'm going to bring up. And this is just brightening the sky, not the subject, so that we can get the color where we want. And that keep getting my cursor in the wrong place where I want to scroll. So we can close that up. And I'm going to go back up to my denoise, because now that I've changed the sky, I want to change this a little bit more. So I'm going to add just a little bit more to the luminosity and a little bit more to the color. And then I'm going to go into advanced settings. I'm going to boost this just a little bit more. Alrighty. And then we're going to go to the vignette because we want to just darken these edges just a little bit. You can, and which is cool, if your subject is not perfectly in the center and you don't want an equal amount of vignetting all the way around, you can click on choose a subject, and I'm going to click on the bird's kind of the top of his head. And that's kind of in the center, but just in case if it's off a little, it will allow me to get the vignette where we want it to be. And I'm going to do an amount. And going to the left will give you a black vignette. Going to the right is going to give you a white vignette. So we're going to come down, and I like it to be very subtle. As somebody said, you don't want somebody to look at your image and go, oh, nice vignette. You really want it to be subtle and direct your viewer's eye to your subject. Then we're going to come down to glow. And I'm clicked on the Orton effect. And of course, all of this is trial and error. You're going to, try different things on your own image and see what you like. And this just kind of gives a little nice soft glow around the image or the subject. And then I went down to, or up to, mood. And what mood is you'll see this thing say choose LUT. And a LUT is a lookup table, which are different tonings for your image. So it's going to change the colors. But the cool thing about a LUT is to not like changing a template or a preset that would change all of the other settings you already made. This just applies on top of everything else you've already done. So it's not going to change any of my settings that I've already changed for anything else. So this one I went down to global color LUTs. And I chose Cairo. And I'm going to lower the amount just a little bit. I just like the way it made the clouds look in this. Very dramatic. And that's pretty much it. Now, if you want to see your before and after, you can either do a split screen with this little button up here and slide it back and forth. It doesn't go all the way to the edge. It will go most of the way. Or you can just click and hold the eyeball, and that will show you your before. And then that's where we are now. So I think that's a much improved version of this bird. So since we started in Photoshop, I'm going to click apply, and that's going to take us back to Photoshop. And there you have it. So that is our finished image. Now I noticed I got a few specks of white in here. I would probably go in and heal those. I'm not going to do that now just for time's sake, but you all know how to use the healing brush, and you can just go in and touch up those couple little areas. So that's our first project. Let's see, I'm looking at quick questions. Joe says, it appears that adding Luminar AI to my already owned Luminar 4, I lost the masking capability when adding a sky. There are more masking editing options in Luminar 4. We'll look at that when we go back in there, Joe. You should be able to mask in Luminar AI because almost all of the tools have masking capabilities. So we'll check that in a second. I haven't tried doing that with a sky. So let's go on to our next one, and I will try and get to all the questions during the webinar. And if I don't, I will do a follow-up on in Thursday's blog. Whoops, we don't need that. We don't need that. We got all these different things open. All right. Mary Jo says, when I work in Lightroom, the edited image doesn't return to Lightroom. It should go back if you started from Lightroom. I'm going to show you guys some places to find some Q&A on there too. Actually, we could do that now. I think pretty much everybody's on. When you open up Luminar and whether you use the catalog or not, you could be on templates and just have your image in here. If you click on this question mark, it will take you to their website that has a ton of information, including a manual that is almost 250 pages long, which goes into detail on every single tool and function in Luminar. So these are some of the, recent videos that they've done. There's a whole bunch of video things in here as well. So if you go back to video galleries, let's see where we are. You can do a whole bunch of things here. So it just goes on and on and on. So there's ton of stuff here, and I'll put this in the follow-up Thursday too, of how to find all of this fun stuff. So let's go over here, and I'm going to work with this rose image next. So I'm selecting that, and I'm just going to go to my templates. And for this one, you can see it was looking and analyzing the image, so now it's popped up some new suggestions for this one. And I'm going to use, let's see what's over here. This one, Invisible Worlds, which is great for macro. And I'm going to use one called Old Macro. And I like to kind of give it a real faded look, but I'm going to bring that back about 50% because I want to keep some of the pretty color in the roses. Then we're going to go over to our edit. We'll start in our essentials. Enhance AI. I'm going to choose about 43. And then we're going to go to composition. So a tip too that you may not realize, when you open Luminar from Photoshop, you will not see this composition function. This is only if you open it as a standalone. So if you're in Photoshop, you're going to want to do your cropping in Photoshop like I did with the first image. But if you open it as a standalone, then you get this composition, which will let you do your cropping here. So I want to change my ratio to free. And then I'm just going to bring this in a little bit. Just click that one a little, and the bottom is okay. Maybe just a smidge back out over here. All right. And then once you click on this, any of the tools, and this one, when you close it, is when it will apply the crop. One second. Yes, just Dave reminded me, if you have a question, instead of in the Q&A, if you could put it in the chat box, because the recording of the session records the chat box, but not the Q&A, so that way I can see them later and answer anything in the follow-up. I'd appreciate it. But Dave is keeping an eye on both, but it's better if you can type your questions there, and if you want to choose all panelists and attendees, and then everybody can see it. Yes, Evelyn, you can add textures, and we are going to do that. That's going to be one of our images in a little bit. So Susan, in editing photos, which is better, Luminar 4 or Luminar AI? It's really your choice, but I definitely love all of the advanced AI features in the Luminar AI. I still have Luminar 4 installed, but I have not used it in months. I think once you get used to what is here, you'll be very pleased with the functionality, because it can do way more than than Luminar 4 did. All right, so we did that, we did crops. Let's go to light. In here, and I just found this recently, it defaults in their profile to the Luminar default. If you click this drop down, there are different profiles in here. And if I choose camera landscape, it actually selected my camera from the list. So it color calibrated basically this image to what my camera saw. And I know they keep adding new camera profiles all the time for the newer cameras. So that's a pretty cool little thing. And then of course we can further adjust things. And I made my highlights a little brighter. And shadows. I brought the shadows down because I wanted to darken that background. There. I'm going to go into structure. And we're going to add some structure. And it's not really sharpening, but it's going to give you the illusion of a sharper image. And color. I'm going to add the vibrance. I'm going to bring back up. The preset put it at -45. I'm going to make it about -24. And then we want to go into details, which is going to give some more crispness to our image. Small, I'm going to up that just a little bit more. Medium. And the large, again, I want to bring those down a little bit because I don't need detail in my background. Then we have under landscape, I actually found to get the background just slightly greener, we can add some foliage enhancer. And it's going to give us a pretty green color. So now we're going to go down to our creative section. Mystical is another one that's very cool on like landscape and nature type images. I'm going to make the amount 50 and shadows bring back. And then we're going to go all the way down to the professional section. Super contrast is amazing. This works better than any other contrast I've ever used. It adds contrast without changing the color of the image like some of them do. And I'm not really good at describing all the technical stuff in the programs. I just know what works well. But I do know that that is how this function works. And then we're going to come down to dodge and burn. And this is pretty much like in Photoshop. So you can choose if you want to lighten, darken, or erase something. I'm going to darken a couple of these spots there. So we have size, and you can use bracket keys, just like in Photoshop, the left and right bracket to change the size of your brush. So I'm going to make my size, I brought it down to about 50. You can use the slider as well. The strength at 50 and the amount at 100. And I just wanted to darken that area a little bit. And a couple of these little bright spots over here. Just want to tone them down just a hair. And for this white spot down here, I'm going to go to the clone tool. And again, this, and don't get alarmed, it changes it back to like the original image while you're using the clone tool so that it gets the color match. But then once you complete it, it will go back to our edited image. So I can select our source, and we're going to do like we do in Photoshop and hold the Alt or Option key, select the source, and then we can move it and just brush. And there it is. And then once you close it, another cool thing, if you want to make the brush harder, right now you can see between those two circles is your soft area, and you can see the softness is all the way at 100. You can either use the slider, or when you use the bracket key, if you hold the Shift key, instead of changing the size of the brush, it will change the size of the area of the softness of the brush. So that was a trick I learned on one of the coffee chats last week. So again, you can use the slider, but you can also do it the other way. So that looks pretty good. And let's close that so it will go back to our finished image. And there we go. So again, there was our before. And there's our after. It has just a little softer image to it. So let me see if I can answer a couple of questions. Marge says, I purchased a template to add to my Luminar, but it didn't add it, and I can't figure out how to do that. I have it as a filter in my Photoshop. When I went to Luminar, it shows I have it, but I can't do anything with it. Okay, I will get to that shortly. I will try and show you that. And yes, you can do incredible things with Luminar. I agree, Susan. All righty. So normally you would, to save this now, you would hit export. I'm not going to do that because it takes a few seconds, but you would export, save photo to disk. You can browse to the folder you want it in, rename it if you choose, and choose all your settings, and then you would just click export. But just for time's sake, I'm not going to do that right now. So our next image, and I've tried to choose different types of photos for today. So we did a bird, a flower, now we're going to do a landscape. And of course, there's a barn in there. And then we're going to also work with this lighthouse. So this image is a 5-shot pano from the Smoky Mountains. This is from Cades Cove down the Great Smoky Mountains National Park from last summer. I did do the merge of this in Photoshop, but these are the merged raw files. I have done absolutely no editing to this other than just saving it so I could bring it in here. So we're going to go to our templates and give it a second. Let's see if it will change our collection here. Let's go back. There we go. I want to go to Easy Landscapes. And I'm going to choose Forest Stream. And I left that one at 100% because I thought, I mean, just even with that one quick click, look at the difference in that image. It's amazing. But of course, we're going to do some other editing. So let's go to Edit. We're going to go up to the Essentials. Start with our Enhance AI. Accent 48. And here we have Sky Enhancer. So if you're not changing the sky, and in this case, I wouldn't want to because we have a nice sky, and the reason I really love this is the way it was, you know, sitting on top of the mountains, but we just want to enhance it a little bit more. Then we're going to go to Light. I changed the temperature just a smidge to just get rid of it. Even though it is very blue, I just wanted to tone that down just a little bit. The exposure, just a little bit there, and smart contrast, a little bit more here. Highlights, we're going to bring way down. And shadows, we're going to bring up a little bit. So again, you can always see your before and after, see what you know, if you like the way you're going with an image. So we're going to go to Structure. And I went with 25. Now, if I wanted to add this function, and this is something you can do with a lot of tools as well, but I'm going to show you how you can use it as a gradient mask. So if I just wanted to apply this to the sky and not the rest of the image. So once you selected a tool, you don't see this masking option until you move a slider, until you've applied a number. Then you can click on Add a Mask, and you can either mask something in or out, or if you click on, you can either do a radial or a gradient mask. So I'm going to choose a gradient mask, and I'm just going to click, and we're going to draw this up. Try and keep it fairly straight. And then I can, whoops, you can angle it, as you can see. Let's move the cursor so we don't angle it. Come on, give me the move tool. There we go. You want to get that hand tool, and then you can move it up or down. So anything between this, this area up here is going to fade up, and then over here would be 100% of the effect showing, and then you can see, if I click the mask, anything that's red is going to be masked out. So it's not going to apply structure to anything below that mountain range. So it's going to fade it in here. So there's a little bit applied here, and then nothing applied down here. So now we could, and I'm going to move this extreme just so you can kind of see, give it a second. You can see what it's doing. Okay, you can see how it's not applying it, and then it is. So we're going to go with about 25. I'm going to go to Color. I'm going to go into the HSL, Hue, Saturation, and Luminance, and I'm going to change the saturation on my blue. I'm going to bring back just a little bit. Green, I'm going to, actually it's already down. I'm going to bring that to about 9. And then, oops, that was cyan. Wrong one. Green, I want to bring back to about there. And actually pull the yellow down a little bit too, just to tone that down a hair. And then we're going to go to details. Again, I like to do this, and I do this when I use my Topaz products too. I like to pop the details a little bit. And then I'm going to do a slight vignette. It has one applied from the template, and I'm going to just add a little bit more. And then in our creative section, I'm going to go to dramatic. Add a little bit there. And under brightness and saturation, I'm going to bring the brightness back just a little bit. And then we're going to go down to the pro section and the super contrast. And what I like here too is you can also target it to your highlights, midtones, and shadows. You're not doing it, you know, to the whole image globally. So highlights, I'm going to add a little bit more. Midtones, just a slight amount. And shadows a little bit more. And again, this is all trial and error, just playing around, see what you like. So here is our before. So of course it's a raw file, very flat, no detail, you know, colors dull.
Make sure you point out the eye to them so they know where it is.
And it's this eyeball up here at the very top above your tools panel for your before and after. It says preview if you hover over it. So there's your before. You got to keep holding it down. And then the after, or you can do the split screen before and after. Huge difference. Huge, huge, huge. And I really like that one. Of course, I love the Smokies, so that's why one of the reasons we moved to Tennessee. All right, let's check the questions before I go on. Yes, Joe, I will post in the blog where the link is for the manual. You may not want to print it because it is so long, but you can definitely save it as a PDF because I have done that. Let's see. If you add a mask to one tool, is there a way to copy the same mask to a different tool? I believe so. Let's go up to, what did I do that on? Sun color. I gotta check. I forgot where I applied that one. It was on structure. So let's go to structure. If we have the mask. Aha. So when you have your mask, I knew there had to be a way. Once you have your mask done, if you click those three little dots over to the right, you can copy. And then you would go to your next function and paste. So yes, you can. And you can also click on show mask if you want to see the mask itself. And then you can also invert it if you wanted to change the effect. And you can clear it and start over. So yes, you can copy and paste. Good question. Thank you. All righty. So let's go back to our catalog. So now we're going to, let's see. There's another question. Light on the ground on the left side. Was that already there when you shot the photo? No, I did not add any light. So this photo, other than what you just saw me do, was that way. Yeah, so it was, you know, just the way that the clouds and the hills and mountains are, there was more light on this side of the image and over here in the background, but not here. So thank you. Okay, so let's do a barn surprise. You know I had to get one of those in there. So, and don't forget to get your copy of the notes because I know you have all these settings and you could play around and see exactly how I did this. That helps me pay for the Zoom so we can keep doing these every month and I appreciate it. And they're on sale until Sunday at midnight for $5. And I'll show you the link at the end. They're in the Peacock Studio store on my newly revised website. Alrighty, so from here, we're going to go to templates. Let's go back over here. And it recognizes the building. So I'm going to use this unique architecture category. And I liked this one called Soul. And I brought it, it's still working. You can see it's blinking over there. So there you go. And sometimes when you see it working, things seem to get a little blurry. Don't get nervous because that's just part of its processing. And I'm going to bring this back just a little bit, like about 90%. So the next thing I wanted to do before I went further is I want to get rid of this post in this one stray branch. So we're going to go into our edit and go down to that clone tool. And I'm going to keep the radius pretty small. And again, I'm going to hold my Alt or Option on a Mac key, and I'm going to select kind of right next to it, but slightly above it for my selection. And then I'm just going to paint down there. And I kind of boo-booed that. So let's try that again. We'll hit the arrow to undo that. And I'm going to hold this shift and make this brush a little harder. You can see how it's changing that size. Yes, dear, you had a question? Or why clone rather than erase? Good question. That's just how I typically have done things, like in Photoshop. Let's see, if we go to Dodge and Burn and hit erase, let's see what happens. I haven't tried that one yet. So good question. So let's see if we make this smaller. Let's see what this can do. Will that erase it? No. I have to investigate this one a little because I haven't used that a whole lot. So I'm going to go back to my clone. And it would kind of be like the spot healing brush, except that you're not healing. It's more like the clone tool in Photoshop. This doesn't have a healing function, but it does have cloning. If I had a lot of cleanup to do, I would probably start in Photoshop and do that there, just because I'm comfortable with it there. Okay, so let that apply. And when the erase tool erase the dodging or burning. Yeah, probably. I think that's what that one is for, Don. I think you're right. So essentials, we're going to go to our Enhance AI, Accent AI. Take that to about 50.
Erase tools and essentials.
Sky Enhancer, 16. Oh yeah, there is an erase too. Well, gee, hadn't noticed that. Alrighty then, I'll have to try that again later. Thanks, Eileen. I saw it there and I guess I never really paid attention to it. See, I told you I keep learning things too. All right, so we'll go to light, smart contrast, 18. Highlights, we're going to bring down a little. Shadows, we're going to bring up, open up the interiors a little bit. Then we're going to go to our structure, amount 22, color, come down to my HSL, and I want saturation. I'm going to bring, and I did not change the sky. That is what the sky looked like that day. I get lucky once in a while, right? Cyan, yellow, and green. So I am selectively adjusting my colors a little bit. And we're going to go to our details. Small, medium, and large. In this case, I want to pump it up a little bit, add some more drama to that sky. Denoise. Do a little bit there, a little bit there, and we're going to boost this a little bit. Then the vignette. Again, I like that slight vignette. And we're going to come into the advanced settings. I'm going to feather this one even a little bit more so it's really soft. Okay, so this image could be complete at this point. If you were just looking to correct an image or fine tune it, this could definitely be complete. There's our before, there's the after. But I wanted to demonstrate adding some textures, so we're going to do that to this image. So to get to the texture function, right now we've been working in, if you look at the very upper right of my screen, we've been working in the tools section. The next section is called local masking. But if you click on here, you can click on add texture. And we are going to load the texture. And let me go to my folder. And we're going to add this first one. And it takes a second to load. And the first thing you want to do is click on place texture, because the texture is a square and my image is not. It's a rectangle. So we need to, just like we do in Photoshop, you want to get the texture sized to your image. So to do that here, I'm going to move my cursor down until I get the arrows, the double pointed arrow, and I'm going to drag this part up. And then I'm going to move till I get the move tool and then bring it back down. And then I can adjust the top. So it's a little different way because I just can't scroll out any farther to see that top edge. So this is how I figured out to do that. And then click place texture again to kind of accept that change. So this one, let's see, I lost my place. We've done that. So now we want to change, like always, our blending mode and opacity. So you're going to click on advanced settings, and that's where we get our blending mode. And I'm going to use soft light. And to change the opacity of the texture, you want to make sure you're using this opacity slider and not this one at the top. This is for masking this section, if you wanted to mask off of your subject. So we want to use this one to control the opacity of the texture. And I'm actually bringing that up to 85. It defaults to 50, but I want it to be a little bit stronger. And then to add another texture, we're going to just do the same thing. Click on add texture, and you'll see there's our first one. Will stay at the bottom. So we're adding up just like we do with layers in Photoshop. Even though these aren't real layers, Luminar does not have layers. It's made to be quick, not to have to worry about everything going on in the background. So yes, Sandy, we can add more than one texture. I see the question there. So we're going to add quite a few to this one. So let me go here. So let's load our texture. And we're going to choose our second one. Place the texture. Whoops. I just dropped my mouse pad. Hold on one second. Just knocked it right off my wrist rest, I should say. Okay. Let's bring this up. And I've learned to go up a little higher so I don't have to keep going back and forth. It's easy enough to just restretch it. Just got to move your cursor to get the right arrows. And there, and place. This one, we're actually all of these, I think I've done it soft light. So soft light, and this one I actually made it 100%. And then we're going to add number 3. Load a texture. And I'm also going to show you how you can turn some on and off and kind of see what you like and don't like we've done in Photoshop. A second to load. Place texture. See, now the place is very important with one like this that has a border to it, because otherwise your top doesn't have that border showing. and place, and advanced, soft light. And this one I'm going to do at about 80%. And you know me, I like to try a bunch and you know, turn things on and off and see what we like. And that's just how I like to work. So we're going to add another one, load texture. We're going to add this other gray one. I was looking more for texture rather than the color in this one. So again, let's pull this up, pull it down. Come on. And stretch that one up. Place, advanced, soft light. This one I'm going to do about 62 or so. All right, so now I want to play with turning things on and off because I kind of like this, but it's maybe a little bright, maybe a little harsh. So I'm going to turn off this last one and the one before it. And all you do to turn it off is turn this little button, this disable, if you hover, it says disable tool. So these are the last two I've added and I've turned those off. So now we're back to just having the first two. But what I wanted to do before I start playing more is I'm going to add another texture. We're going to add a border. So we're going to load it. And these are all from my different texture collections. And this is one of my borders. And this is a PNG file, so it has a transparent background. So this one actually took a few seconds longer to load when I was playing around with it before. And for this one, I thought the border was cool, but a little bit wide. So I'm actually going to size it so that the border goes off the image a little. Come on. And becomes a little bit thinner. So just like we do in Photoshop, sometimes we decide to, just so some of the border is showing and not the whole thing. And then this one, we're going to go to advanced, soft light, and out there. So then I went back to, I decided to leave the fourth one off after trying it a couple times. I went back to the third one, turned that one back on, and I lowered the opacity some. And I liked that a little better. And again, it's all personal taste, what you like on your particular image. But you can turn them on and off and change. You can try and change blending modes, changing opacities. You might want to change the brightness on a particular texture. That will affect it too. You can change the contrast, the saturation. So if you wanted a texture and didn't want the color, you could pull down the saturation all the way. You can also change the hue a little bit. So there's a lot you can play with these different functions. So don't be afraid. I mean, we've done 5 textures here, even though one we ended up turning off. But it's, you know, definitely something to play with. Somebody had a question about denoise. Do you usually use denoise after details? Won't that partially undo the detail you just added? Yes. Yes and yes. I do use it after details generally. And it will, to some degree, undo some of the sharpness, but I found that happens a lot less with Luminar because of the AI technology. I don't find it to be as prominent as I have with other programs.
Can you show how to turn on the texture again, on and off?
How can you add texture? So if you wanted to turn off a texture, you just open up that particular texture, and it's this little button right over here on the right. And this is the same for any tool, not just the textures. You can just click it off. So now it's disabled, and now it's reading. And you can tell if the name is grayed out, it like is faded, you know it's off. And then when you click it again, you know it's on. So could you show the texture a little bit? Yeah, unfortunately, that is not a feature at this point. It just says texture. I'll have to submit that as a suggestion for the future. They're continuing to add and change and improve this program all the time. I know they have a new feature coming in the next release. I'm not sure if that might be in May. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. They're going to be adding some bokeh features to soften those backgrounds. So yeah, it would be cool if we had the names. So that's why typically textures I don't use here in Luminar. I would probably do them more often in Photoshop, just for that fact that I can, you know, easily drag things in and out and, you know, get rid of them and add them. And I just think it's a little bit simpler there, but it's nice to know that you can do them here if you want to just work in Luminar. All right, so let's go to our last project. So I got this kind of nondescript lighthouse. This was in Rhode Island, I believe. So I'm not going to use a template on this one. So I'm going to go right to the edit section. And I got to click back to my tools. So that's one thing to remember if you've been using textures and some of the other features in here, you just need to select back to the tools tab to get back to all of your tools. So we're going to go to our composition. And I wanted to, I think that this horizon's just slightly crooked, and there is a perspective correction here. So I'm going to just click this button and boom, it just straightened my horizon for me. And then I'm going to still free crop. And I want to bring the sky down just a little bit, not a whole lot. And maybe come in just a little bit over here. So I'm pretty close still to the third of the water, a little bit more, but it's not in the center, so that's good. So we're going to go to our, back to Enhance AI. I did my cropping first. And then we're going to do accent. There. Now to light. I'm going to bring up the highlights and the shadows. And then I'm going to go to structure. And I'm really not worried about the sky because I'm going to change the sky in a minute. So I'm really just looking at the rest of the image. Then we're going to go to the creative and go to our sky selection. Come on. I did this once today. It kind of hesitated. I'm making it do too much. Okay. Come on. There we go. Sky selection. So I'm going to choose, let's do the custom. And two, if you have the, there's a Luminar X membership, and what that gets you is skies and LUTs and templates, additional products every month for free. And then you also get a discount on other things that you may wish to purchase in their online market, which are additional textures and things. So that's why I've gotten a whole bunch of extra things in here, plus my own that I brought in. But I'm going to go to custom, and you would just hit the plus sign. I actually brought this one in earlier, but I'll show you. It's the plus sign, and then you would go to the folder where you have it. And this is the sky I'm going to use. Yeah, I'll replace it because I did bring it in earlier. So now you can see there's the name of it. And in just a few seconds, it will change. So now we're going to tweak this a little bit. So I changed my vertical offset just slightly. And it's working. I brought the horizon down. I wanted that the brighter area just a little bit closer to my horizon. And we're going to go down to the scenery lighting, and I cranked up the relight strength a little bit. And relight saturation. So that's affecting the rest of the image, not the sky, but everything else. And then because we have water, also introduced in the last update was reflections. And this one isn't as dramatic as some water would be, but you would click on this reflection section, and I'm going to take it all the way to 100. Probably normally you wouldn't, but just because there's waves and stuff, I wanted to, you know, kind of show you what it looked like. And obviously it's not going to be as dramatic, but what this reflection does, it's not just a mirror image. The AI function is actually analyzing the sky and reflecting the clouds the way they would really look based on the perspective of the image. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about all the stuff that this program can do. And then I went into sky adjustments, and I brought down the brightness of the sky just a little bit. And then we're going to go into Augmented Sky. And in here, there are a bunch of things that come in the product. Some clouds, birds, fireworks, mountains, planes, the space shuttle, moons, lightning. I don't know why there's a giraffe in here, but hey, somebody was having fun, I guess. And you can also bring your own things in here, which I did earlier. And this is the one I just brought in, my flock of seagulls. And then you're going to click on Place Object. And now we can resize it. Probably about there. And then I want to move it so it looks like the birds are coming from around the lighthouse. There's a little bit of lag when you drag some of these things. You got to give it a second to catch up. And I thought that looked pretty cool. Looks like they're coming from the lighthouse there. And then again, click back on Place Object to accept it. And under Advanced Settings, you can mask things. You can defocus things if you need them to blend better. I just went up and I changed the warmth a little bit. And that's changing only the warmth of the object you added, not the rest of the image.
Is it changing the water too?
And this warmth is only changing the birds, just the birds that you just added. This is only for the augmented section. So there is our before. That's a pretty dramatic difference, right? I think that's pretty cool. So there you go. Wow, right at 5 o'clock. How good was that? Oh, to add a template. Good. Thank you, dear. I did forget that. Did you show them? Okay. So in templates, let's go back over here. So if you've purchased templates, you just click on this button that says Add. And you'll go to wherever you saved them on your computer. So I have a folder. Photos. I have my Luminar assets. Luminar templates. And I put the X so I knew that they were ones that I imported, and then you would just double click it, and it will then go into your list when you open this up. A bunch of these are all the ones that I've added. So you've got Ultimate Landscapes, Cinematographer, Monochrome Vision, Cityscapes, Black and White Wildlife, Invisible Worlds. So these are all the ones that I've added. So that's all you have to do is just click on that Add button next to the purchased. If you've brought over any from Luminar 4, I haven't tried to do that yet. Those would go in here. Any that you create yourself, once you do a bunch of changes. If I decide I love this lighthouse and I want to maybe be able to use that on something else, all you do is come down to, because now it says my template edited because I've edited this image, click those 3 dots, save it. And now when it's done, it's working. And then you go to my templates, and there they are. And you can rename these too. So then I can change it, rename it, and I can say sunrise, oops, lighthouse sunrise. And then I could open that and use that on another image. And then you can also favorite templates when you're in something. If you decide I like it, just click the heart, and then that will show up under the favorites, which I've only done one so far.
Yeah, Mark Harrison.
All right. So Marge, is that what you needed to know with adding a template? Let me know if that's cool. And I think we're about at the end. So give me 1 second to bring up. We have a very special sale for you today. Tomorrow is Dave and I's 37th wedding anniversary. So I am doing a very special 37% off all of my textures, brushes, and ebooks. The code is anniversary 37, and that is good until Sunday at midnight, as well as the sale on the notes, which are regular $7.50. They're now $5, and that also runs through Sunday at midnight. And if you don't have Luminar yet, this is my affiliate link, which is also on my website. Let me show you the new website real quick. Oh, I have to go to Bing. Chrome and my website don't get along sometimes, at least for me, because I go in there so much. So it throws an error sometimes. So this is my new website. And there's a little bit about me. And I did mark here, these are like my most looked at pages. But if you click this little, and if you don't already get my newsletter, sign up and you get some free textures. Click that little 3-line, they call it a hamburger menu, and then you can go to all the pages on the website, and under affiliate links are my direct links to all of the companies that I work with. There's my Luminar, and you can save $10 on the program. That doesn't work for any of the store stuff, only on the program itself. But I have Topaz and Photomatics and Smart Photo Editor, which will be next month's webinar, and some other equipment and things that I like to use. So I'm pretty happy with the way the webinar turned out. I mean, the website, I mean. So take a peek around, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And I will definitely post that, Joe. If you shoot me an email, I will send it to you as well, but I will post it in Thursday's blog. Thanks for the happy anniversary wishes. Any other questions? We will be covering Nick in a future webinar. I just saw that buzz by. I will probably do that. Next month is going to be Smart Photo Editor. We'll do Nick in June. How's that? And there is not a discount for Nick. That's the only company that doesn't really give us a discount code. I do post when they have sales and stuff, but by using my links, I do get a small commission, so that helps too. I appreciate it if you do. Unfortunately, they don't have a discount code. So thank you guys. I hope you all enjoyed it and learned a few new tricks for Luminar, and I'll continue to share things, of course, as I find them. And we'll talk to you all again real soon. Thanks. Have a great evening.